Happy Friday, soon to be weekend. I'm Sal Greco, and you're watching and listening to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button. If you're watching us on Rumble, please hit the Rumble button, hit that like button, hit the follow button. If you're listening on any major podcast streaming platforms, please like, share, and subscribe. Today, we have a news blitz. My head is spinning from the amount of news that is coming out in the last 24 to 48 hours. The New York City mayor is supposedly resigning today. He's going to be indicted today. I don't know, but there's so much going on there. Maybe he's getting pardoned. I don't know exactly, but it's crazy. And there's other things that are crazy. Like Sean P.Diddy Combs got hit with a superseding indictment. There's also a city hall staffer in New York City that's probably going to lead to some kind of RICO case in City Hall. So much to go off of. Oh, and the NYPD State of their Union, apparently. But we're going to cover that and more starting right now. New York City Council probing Adams staffer's involvement in ex-employer's development deal with City. This is in the New York Daily News. It's by Chris Sommerfeld.
The New York City Council is launching a probe into revelations that a private real estate firm scored a deal to redevelop the city government's public health lab just months after one of the company's executives joined Mayor Adams' administration, the Daily News has learned. In a letter sent Monday to Adams' office, Gail Brewer and Amanda Farias, the chairwomen of the council's Oversight and Economic Development Committees respectively, demanded reams of records related to the administration official, Nate Bliss, and his involvement in the decision to let Taconic Partners overhaul the historic Manhattan Public Health Lab. The News obtained a copy of the letter. Taconic, along with a development partner, got picked by Adams' administration in April 2022 to turn the lab on First Avenue in Kips Bay into a 500,000 square feet state-of-the-art life sciences hub dubbed Innovation East. The deal, which has yet to be approved by the City Council, is expected to be worth tens of millions of dollars and was awarded by the City Economic Development Corporation, an entity Bliss helps oversee in his role as Chief of Staff to First Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer. The Taconic deal was announced after Bliss had just 3 months earlier left his job as Taconic's vice president to join City Hall in late January 2022. Additionally, as first reported by NBC4 earlier this month, the deal came together at a time when Bliss was still pulling income from Taconic. On top of his chief of staff job, Bliss was appointed by Adams in 2022 to become chair of the Land Development Corporation, an obscure municipal entity that ultimately needs to sign off on the lab redevelopment. The overlap between Mr. Bliss' financial ties to Taconic, his roles at City Hall overseeing EDC and at LDC, and his involvement in projects like Innovation East raised significant concerns about potential conflicts of interest, Brewer and Farias wrote in their letter addressed to Torres Springer and EDC CEO Andrew Kimball, notifying them of their probe of the Taconic deal. This seemingly complicates the distinction between his roles as a private sector executive and a public official, which must be clarified. Among various other records, the council members demanded all communications between Bliss, the mayor's office and EDC staff about the Innovation East project while he was still employed at Taconic. They also requested the confidential bidding documents submitted by Taconic as part of the deal as well as communications between the EDC and the mayor's office about the selection of the firm. Brewer and Farias set a Monday deadline for Adams' administration to fork over the requested records. Adams spokeswoman Liz Garcia wouldn't commit to meet the deadline, but said the mayor's office is reviewing the letter and will respond to the council accordingly. Before joining Taconic in 2019, Bliss worked for the EDC's real estate arm for over 15 years, overlapping with Torres Springer, who was the corporation's CEO between 2015 and 2017, their LinkedIn profiles show. The EDC's initial request for bids on the Innovation East project precedes Adams' administration and was issued in 2018, while Bliss still worked for the corporation. EDC spokesman Jeff Holmes confirmed Thursday the corporation then entered negotiations with Taconic in January 2021, at which point Bliss had gotten his new executive job at the real estate firm, over redeveloping the public health lab. Holmes said an EDC selection committee that didn't involve Bliss made the call in April 2022 that Taconic should get the redevelopment award. Holmes didn't specify who was on that committee. Bliss didn't return calls Thursday, but Taconic rep Dane Wisher said any suggestion of impropriety is baseless as it relates to Bliss and the firm's dealings with the city. Bliss financial disclosures show he received between $100,000 and $250,000 from Taconic in the first few weeks of 2022 before he officially joined City Hall on January 23 of that year. Additionally, Bliss has reported in disclosures that while in city government, he's receiving payments from a real estate investment fund managed by Taconic. It's unclear from his disclosures how much he may have received from that fund. Brewer and Farias specifically asked Adams' office to furnish records confirming how much Bliss has been paid or will be paid by that fund. They also asked for a list of all properties in the city the fund is or has been invested in. Under city ethics law, a municipal employee is prohibited from working on any matters involving a private firm with which the employee has a financial relationship. Besides his income, Taconic directly lobbied Bliss last year on land use issues related to the site where the life sciences hub is to be built, city records show. The lab Taconic has been selected to transform is where government scientists develop the city's responses to some of the worst public health emergencies in recent history, including the COVID pandemic. In order to accommodate the new life sciences hub, the lab is being moved to Harlem Hospital under the administration's plan. The Taconic deal concerns come at a time of heightened scrutiny around city government ethics as Adams remains under a federal corruption indictment to which he has pleaded not guilty. Adams' administration real estate dealings have recently come under especially intense scrutiny. The Department of Administrative Services, which Torres Springer's office also helps oversee, is mired in controversy over a lawsuit alleging a top agency official, Jesse Hamilton, pressured the city government's main commercial real estate broker to put one of his friends, Diana Bout-Ross, in charge of the firm's dealings with the city. The lawsuit was filed after Ingrid Lewis Martin, Adams' ex-chief advisor and a friend to Hamilton and Bout-Ross, was indicted on bribery charges related to favors she allegedly did for real estate developers. She has pleaded not guilty, and Hamilton and Bout-Ross aren't facing charges.
Yeah, so what you're reading here and what you're hearing here is very troubling. Like everything else in City Hall in New York City, this guy that was not working for this company and then all of a sudden is working in City Hall, this is a complete conflict. And I don't know how this doesn't end in a cataclysmic way legally. It's just another... everywhere you turn, what else has this administration gotten involved in? This is like a RICO case right in front of you. I remember hearing about the real estate contract where you mentioned Diana Boutros, and that's already being probed. And that's a problem because I believe they were charging 35%, and people will do real estate deals at 4%. 35% sounds like kickback city. And now you have this. So, what else can we say on the Sal Greco Show in regards to the Eric Adams administration? To be continued. But the next topic is the State of the Union in the New York City Police Department. So, let's roll the next article out. new NYPD unit to crack down on quality of life offenses. Commissioner Jessica Tisch. This is by Rocco Parascandolo of the New York Daily News.
The NYPD, which under Mayor Adams has re-emphasized broken windows policing, is about to focus even more on quality of life offenses as a way of preventing more serious crime, Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said Thursday. A newly formed citywide NYPD Quality of Life Division, run by a chief, will take shape in the coming weeks, Tisch said, with officers in each command assigned to Q teams. Supervisors will be called to regular Q-Stat meetings modeled after CompStat, the department's method of tracking crimes in real time, allocating resources to prevent more crime and holding commanders accountable for their strategies. Tisch, speaking at the annual State of the NYPD breakfast in Midtown, said that quality of life offenses, such as aggressive panhandling, unlicensed street vending, public urination and abandoned vehicles, give the impression of an unsafe community. For too long we asked our cops to correct these conditions without sufficient direction, Tisch said. No more. These Q-Stat meetings will bring our quality of life work into much greater focus, more accurately measure our effectiveness and recenter our approach to public safety. Broken windows policing was a hallmark of Bill Bratton during his first term as NYPD Police Commissioner 30 years ago. Critics through the years have criticized the approach as encouraging racial profiling, with residents in largely Black and Hispanic communities more likely to be given summonses for low-level offenses or arrested. The NYPD has repeatedly denied it engages in racial profiling and has argued that police are merely responding to complaints from New Yorkers, including Blacks and Hispanics. After Tisch's speech, however, Andrew Case, a top lawyer with Latino Justice Pro-Def, said racial profiling invariably follows such enforcement. Quality of life policing is broken windows policing, he said. It has been tried and it failed. And Phil D. Scranges, a top lawyer with the Legal Aid Society, said quality of life enforcement is a pretext to stop and harass New Yorkers who are going about their day. The end result, he added, is the continued criminalization of poverty with nothing invested in the services that deal with the causes of many low-level offenses. In her speech, Tisch again lamented the rise in the number of repeat offenders who she says are too often released without bail. She emphasized the need to work with prosecutors and legislators to tweak the 2020 discovery laws, so that more time is allowed for police and prosecutors to gather the evidence that must be turned over to defense lawyers. She also said a new NYPD Police Academy class sworn in Wednesday will benefit from an improved training curriculum to help them better respond to subway incidents involving the mentally ill. Our first priority is to protect life, she said. And to put it bluntly, our cops need better tactics. At the same time, starting with a transit district in Queens, cops will more consistently enforce subway rules, including those prohibiting smoking and riders lying across multiple seats. The move follows a series of initiatives aimed at tamping down subway crime and making riders feel safer. Last week, as part of a plan announced by Governor Hochul, the NYPD started assigning 2 cops to every train in the city overnight. Earlier in the month, Tisch moved more than 200 cops into subway patrols, noting they will be on the trains and platforms, where 78% of subway crime happens. Serious subway crime dropped 6% last year. But the system has been rocked by a series of random attacks, most notably the murder of a homeless woman Debrina Kawam, 57, who was set on fire in Coney Island last month, allegedly by Sebastian Zapata, 33.
So in response to the state of the NYPD, Marlon Bethel, who is also part of the Finest Unfiltered family, on X, on his account at Fire Detective, posted this. That's called an impact zone at NYPD PC, and flooding a high crime zone with untrained rookies unfamiliar with the area and then asking them to be aggressive is what fueled the rise of BLM to begin with. A lot of the very NYPD reforms enacted by Bratton under de Blasio were meant as a counter to the abuses of impact. But apparently it's okay to go back on those reforms now that AI is being used. This is more of the at NYPD News ping-ponging from over-policing to under-policing and back, recycling old ideas under new names to make the current seat warmers at 1PP look like geniuses. If you just staffed precincts properly and the city actually prosecuted criminals, you wouldn't need to continue attempting to gaslight us. Let's listen to Police Commissioner Tisch.
Then the department thought about crime at the precinct level. But the average precinct in New York City is quite large, extending 4 square miles. And each precinct varies widely in size and population and land use. So the traditional precinct-based model doesn't always allow for the most precise analysis. As you all know, I have a tech background and a data background. I knew coming into this job that our data has become more detailed and defined over the years, and our analytic tools have gotten more sophisticated. We certainly can dig so much deeper into the numbers and be so much more precise. So now we're focusing on much smaller geographical areas than precincts. Specific street segments, portions of neighborhoods, sometimes stretches of several blocks that cross precinct borders where we see spikes in crime. We call them zones, and zone-based policing is a hyper-local, data-driven policing model. We know that the presence of police drives down crime and disorder, and the idea behind zone-based policing is quite literally to flood the zone. In a world with limited resources, you can't flood the zone across a 4 square mile precinct, and you don't need to. But you can do that across 10 problematic blocks. These zones are being identified by an algorithm that analyzes crimes and defines clusters of violence and disorder. It shows us exactly where our cops need to be and the conditions they need to address there. And I want to be clear, this is not about targeting individuals. It is about effective, efficient officer deployments. It is a focused, location-based, scalpel approach to crime. It is emphatically the 2025 modernization of the classic cops on the dot strategy that fueled so much crime-fighting success over the past 3 decades. And how appropriate it is to take this next step in the Comstat revolution on the heels of its 30th anniversary. The zone model allows us to be quite nimble too, through the use of mobile field forces, groups of officers that can be deployed to any part of the city at any time.
So first off, the State of the Union in the New York City Police Department, the quality of life unit and the quality of life zones and all this is rearranging the furniture in a room. Everyone tries to reinvent the wheel, but let's go back in time. Under then Police Commissioner Ray Kelly and then Police Commissioner Bill Bratton, we had what was called impact. Just like my friend Marlon Bethel posted, there was an impact zone. There was something that was called IRT. So when I came fresh out of the police academy, I was in IRT for Brooklyn South, along with numerous other officers. We would stand on foot posts, and what they wanted from us were numbers, aka quotas. They wanted certain summonses, quality of life summonses. They wanted arrests. So you made arrests. And not that you would harass people in a neighborhood. Some people might have taken it too far. Some people scaled back and picked their spots. But you could only do what you're told to do and what you're trained to do. So the initiative back then is the same thing we're hearing right now. And guess what? You know who's in Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch's ear? You know who's in her ear? Former Police Commissioner Bill Bratton, former Police Commissioner Ray Kelly, and Ray Kelly's cronies, like this guy Burke, this former Chief Burke. So all you're doing is going back to the past, reminding people that we're going to take a page from a book that did crime, was it down? Yes, but it came at a price because there's a lot of litigation that is actually still ongoing, and there's many people who are disgruntled over that. They feel that the police department harassed them. They feel that they were harassed unwarrantedly, arrested, so all I'm saying here is why go back to the past and not move forward with something different? And this quality of life chief and whatever this is, quality of life unit, back in my time, each precinct in a borough, so we'll say Brooklyn South and then Brooklyn North, right? Brooklyn's divided into two boroughs, Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South. So the 6-0, the 6-1, the 6-2, the 6-6, the 6-7, the 6-8, 7-0, 7-1, all these precincts, they would go to what they called a borough meeting. And the borough meeting would happen every 28-day period. There'd be one of these meetings. At these meetings, you could go with the platoon commander, which would be the lieutenant, and that's each shift. There's 3 tours, day tour, 4 to 12s, and a midnight shift. So you had the day, the afternoon, and the evening. That's the 3 shifts. So these 3 shifts would have to send a representative, a lieutenant, a sergeant, if the lieutenant wasn't around, or it could even be the executive officer or the commanding officer. And you're sitting there in front of the borough chief. This is a 2-star chief, or maybe his executive, which is a 1-star chief. And they go over the objectives, the goals, whatever it is that one police plaza is telling the borough about and what they want done. And you have to present your numbers. They will then compare one precinct to the other. So this quality of life unit is being set up the exact same way, only you're answering to just one chief. And there's going to be a quality of life stat, which is no different than CompStat, where you would pull up all the quality of life summonses that you would write in the command and bring that to. So all they're doing here is rearranging the furniture. In reality, this was in a time when the district attorney's offices were, I'd say, more pro-police, against criminality. But now in 2025, when legislation doesn't do anything that is productive as far as public safety and trying to keep order in the streets, you have a bail reform law, you have a discovery law, there's the diaphragm law. So these are things that would hinder activity. You want a proactive police department. Right now, it's not something that I think many officers have as their top priority. So the other thing here I heard was community response team. This was a unit that was, as I unveiled on my X and on previous episode of Sal Greco Show, was done and designed for John Schell to become the chief of patrol and give him some function, because he could never be promoted because, as you know, he was involved in a shooting in 2007 where he says he was cleared. There was a civil trial for that shooting where the city had to pay $2.5 million. He went on to get promoted and all the glory. He's all over the internet. But where are the grand jury minutes from the ADA that was assigned that case, Charles Gurria? They're nowhere to be found. So John Schell, actually, in the New York City Police Department, New York City, has an issue. And yes, the video of that shooting is also incomplete now. A lot of questions there. But the unit CRT, Community Response Team, was designed to give John Schell a function so that he could get to chief of patrol and now chief of department. That's actually something I already said. What is now going to be their function? Because I also said that they would be disbanded. They'll be reformed into something else. Because now there's going to be a quality of life team. So the whole thing is being shifted. They're trying to move away from the John Shell era and the way of his crazy ideas out there that was probably cost a lot of money in litigation, and a lot of police officers probably have CCRBs and are named in numerous lawsuits thanks to the wonderful leadership of one John Shell and the Deputy Commissioner of Operations, Kaz Daughtry. To be continued, but on to the next topic. NYPD car chases dropped by 66%. First weeks of policy shift. NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch said new restrictions on when officers can pursue vehicles that flee from police stops are already producing safer streets. This is by Yoav Gonen of thecity.nyc. NYPD vehicle pursuits have dropped by 2/3 in the 2 weeks since Commissioner Jessica Tisch announced a policy to restrict their use, she said yesterday. The revised policy, announced January 15th, but not set to be fully implemented until Saturday, limits pursuits to cases of suspected felonies or violent misdemeanors. Traffic violations are no longer grounds for officers to pursue fleeing vehicles. The reversal following reporting by the city that found vehicle pursuits were connected to more than a crash per day in 2024, and that deaths and injuries had mounted since a more aggressive policy of chasing vehicles was instituted in late 2022. The advanced tools of modern-day policing make it possible to apprehend criminals more safely and effectively than ever before, Tisch said at her State of the NYPD speech in Midtown Manhattan Thursday in justifying the policy change. Mayor Eric Adams had been supportive of the more aggressive tactics, telling reporters that he trusted police supervisors to make the right call on when to pursue fleeing vehicles. Tisch also announced a new hyper-local approach to police deployment that focuses on smaller zones within precincts, such as a recent initiative targeting crime-rich stretches of Roosevelt Avenue in Queens and an overhaul to the department's approach to quality of life enforcement. Quality of life enforcement was the primary focus of the community response team, run by then Chief of Patrol John Shell and Deputy Commissioner of Operations Kaz Daughtry, which has earned a reputation of being both overly aggressive and secretive. For too long, we asked our cops to correct these conditions without sufficient direction. No more, said Tisch, who didn't mention the community response team by name and who in December promoted Chief Shell to Chief of Department. Shell had been the main driver behind the NYPD's aggressive approach to vehicle pursuits. Tisch said in the coming months, she'll establish a quality of life division headed by a new chief with officers and precincts assigned to so-called Q teams that respond specifically to quality of life complaints from the public. She also vowed to restore the department's headcount to 35,000 uniformed officers. The police department's press office didn't respond when asked whether the quality of life enforcement overhaul directly impacts the community response team. The new commissioner, Adams' fourth in 3 years, was appointed in November, 2 months after the resignation of NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban, and the days after the FBI seized his cell phone as part of an investigation. Caban has not been accused of wrongdoing. So what's good here is that this policy that's not even implemented yet, when it comes to the car pursuits, they're down right now, I think 66%, like the article said. The problem here is it's still written in a way where this could be all arbitrary, because what happens here is these are judgment calls by supervisors. I always said when it came to a car pursuit, and I've touched on this subject in the past on the Sal Greco Show with Eric Dim, and look, car pursuits, they're a judgment call not only by the police officer, but by the supervisor. Because let's say there's a traffic infraction and the guy takes off. You decide to pursue him because you see what appears to be a weapon in the car. All of a sudden you go from a traffic infraction to a felony car stop, right? So this could always go one way or the other. So the bottom line here is that they're trying to be more stringent, and it's not because they're trying to do the right thing by the public, or there is major litigation. The only way the police department in New York City changes any of their own rules or anything going on internally or externally is litigation, court decisions. There are numerous officers now that are on the line with these lawsuits because of fatalities, accidents. So the response will be to once again tighten up and make it look like you're doing something so that you could present it in court saying, no, we changed the procedure. This has happened numerous times in the past. You'll see that they usually change it. But what's good is this cowboy style from the chief of department, John Shell, at that time, the chief of patrol, where he stated, we're going to go and chase these cars. It's over. That style will more than likely land you in front of a jury somehow. You have to be smart. I can't emphasize this any more than saying every man and woman out there working right now, and you're working a day shift, a night shift, whatever shift you're working, be very cognizant of these procedures and these rules, especially when it comes to something like this, because they will leave you out to dry pending how this procedure, how they want to apply it when something goes wrong. Everything's great until something comes up. And if somebody brings litigation, you had an accident, with your vehicle, your police vehicle, or there's a fatality, look out, because they will leave you high and dry. It's nice to see the police department is trying to turn the page on this, even though there's ways around this procedure technically, but it's a step in the right direction to get away from the rhetoric of one John Shell, who when, they say the crap hits the fan, he will be the first one to tell you, well, officer, even though I may have said that I'm for car pursuits, what does your training tell you? Trust me. That's happened already in the past with that gentleman. So on to the next topic. NYC ambulance response times for life-threatening emergencies jump as EMTs see staffing crunch. It's by Carl Campanelli of the New York Post. Ambulance response times during life-threatening emergencies jumped in the last year, according to revealed data, as the FDNY blames ongoing staffing and recruiting problems. Average ambulance response time to life-threatening emergencies jumped more than 34 seconds from 8 minutes and 14 seconds in the 2024 fiscal year to 8 minutes and 48 seconds for the first quarter of the 2025 fiscal year, running from July 1st through November, according to the mayor's management report. The FDNY goal is to bring ambulance response times to such calls to under 7 minutes, the report said. The response times have creeped up in recent years. In fiscal year 2022, the ambulance response time to life-threatening emergencies was 7 minutes and 26 seconds. Combined average response to life-threatening emergencies by ambulances and fire companies combined also shot up 18 seconds from 6 minutes and 32 seconds last year to 6 minutes and 50 seconds during the first quarter of the fiscal year. The report comes as FDNY leaders say the department has been having trouble staffing and recruiting EMTs and paramedics in its emergency medical services unit. Emergency medical services, EMS, faces a lack of resources in terms of emergency medical technicians and paramedics, as well as a smaller pipeline of potential recruits, FDNY said in the report. The reduction in capacity leads to fewer in-service hours per day for EMS. The union, representing 4,200 paramedics, emergency medical technicians, and fire inspectors, is one of the few that has not reached a new labor contract under Mayor Eric Adams. Low pay has been a sore point for the life-saving ambulance workers. By comparison, average response time to life-threatening medical emergencies solely by fire companies held steady at 5 minutes and 55 seconds, a second lower than the last fiscal year. Still, the target FDNY response time goal is 4 minutes and 38 seconds for life-threatening emergencies. Former FDNY Commissioner Tom Von Essen blasted the increased ambulance response times and blamed former Mayor Bill de Blasio and current Mayor Eric Adams for not addressing the subpar pay for paramedics and EMTs, as well poor agency management. The incompetence and mismanagement of de Blasio has not been corrected by Adams. We merged EMS into fire over 25 years ago, and hard to believe, but not complete yet, Von Essen, the fire commissioner, during the September 11, 2001 attacks told the Post. We promised EMTs and paramedics better pay and broke that promise, added Von Essen, who also served as regional director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency during the pandemic. What they did during COVID was nothing short of remarkable. Current response time problem is exacerbated by shortage of new recruits, salary a problem, and need more ambulances and general poor management at FDNY. So the EMS union has a contract that's still lingering. They also have issues that they're understaffed. They also have not up-to-date equipment. And then you wonder why they have these response times issues. This has actually been going on for many years, and it's progressed because they are understaffed. Why? Can you honestly tell me someone who is jumping up and down right now to say, I want to go work for a municipality in New York City? I can't find someone who would actually tell me that in my face. They might want to say, yes, I want to take a job and I want this. And then when they get there, they start complaining, going, what was I thinking? And there's a lot of that. Whether you're in the New York City Police Department, whether you're in the fire department, whether you're in sanitation, whether you're in EMS. So I don't want to have anyone dunk on EMS. These people work hard, but quite frankly, the hiring process in itself is questionable, just like the other agencies, especially under Bill de Blasio, now Eric Adams. They don't have up-to-date equipment. Take a good look when you see EMS come with the ambulance. You're going to see that the equipment that should be in there, some of it is old. I don't know what EMS and what the FDNY does with the money that's allocated to EMS. So the budget, there might be an issue there. And then when you go to work, much like in the NYPD, where is everyone? They don't have a full staff. The numbers are way down compared to where they were years ago. So this just shows you a failure by the leadership once again, and that's in City Hall, New York City Mayor Eric Adams, City Council, who just parties all the time with everyone and could care less about what's going on. This is a public safety issue. Mayor Adams should give these people a contract, and in that contract, figure out what it's going to take to have up-to-date equipment, more ambulances, and how do I hire the right people and actually recruit people to want this job? Because recruiting, it sucks in New York City. Okay? That's just a fact. And now I want to move on to a subject that I think has captivated everyone in America, and that's Sean P. Diddy Combs and his fall from grace, and now another superseding indictment.
The downfall of 55-year-old Diddy, a.k.a. Sean John Combs, Puff Daddy, Puffy, P. Diddy, is a classic Shakespearean tragedy, showbiz style. It began to go very wrong last March when the feds raided his homes in L.A. and Miami. In May, horrifying footage of Diddy brutally attacking his then-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, in a hotel hallway in 2016 was leaked and went viral. He quickly apologized, settled with Ventura, but his problems were just starting.
The world-famous Sean Diddy Combs is expected to be arraigned on federal charges this morning.
Diddy is being charged with racketeering and sex trafficking.
Now the three-time Grammy-winning rapper, record producer, record executive, and fashion designer, once the toast of New York and LA, not to mention the Hamptons and Saint-Tropez, is cooling his heels at the notorious Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. He's been there since his September arrest on racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking charges. Now he's given up on getting out on bail and will be in jail until his trial in May 2025. Even Jay-Z's gotten dragged into the mess. He was recently accused of raping a minor along with Diddy at an MTV VMAs after party in 2000. Now, Jay-Z hasn't been charged with anything and is fighting back very aggressively. Diddy, too, insists he's not guilty of all the charges against him. He also says he's innocent of all the claims against him in dozens of civil lawsuits filed in recent months by both women and men. Now, they claim in many cases that he drugged, groped, and raped them. Diddy's accused of orchestrating creepy sex parties known as freak-offs in the early 2000s. These ragers were said to be elaborate, high-profile affairs, which the feds say were really day-long sex orgies. But the freak-offs, the white parties, they're all a thing of the past now. Instead of waking up in one of his luxurious mansions, Diddy wakes up to cinder block walls. The jail has housed everyone from R. Kelly to Sam Bankman-Fried. President Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, spent time there as well and called it, quote, disgusting with, quote, horrifying conditions. Either way, it's a long way from Diddy's life as a rap icon, but there are those who believe that how it begins is often how it ends. I was a cub reporter on the night shift 33 years ago this month when we heard there'd been a riot at a City College of New York charity basketball game organized by a then unknown Puffy that ended in a deadly stampede. 9 people died. The tragedy might have stopped some careers in their tracks, but not Diddy's. Despite decades of scandals, which included a nightclub shooting in 1999 involving Diddy, his then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, and rapper Jamal Shine Barrow, Diddy kept growing in wealth, power, and influence. Diddy's father, Melvin Earl Combs, was a small-time drug dealer shot dead in his car when Diddy was just 3 years old. Diddy has so far avoided that fate, but his professional life has taken what seems to be a fatal hit. At least his kids, he's got 7 by several different women, are sticking by him, along with his mother, Janice Combs. He's got some of the best lawyers money can buy, but it may not be enough to save him this time.
Sean Diddy Combs hit with new indictment expanding span of alarming sexual allegations to 20 years. This is by Ben Kochman and Alex Oliveri of the New York Post. Sean Diddy Combs once strangled a victim over an apartment balcony, prosecutors alleging a new indictment that added 2 more victims and an earlier start date to the disgraced star's alleged reign of sexual terror. Combs, 55, sexually abused his victims for at least 2 decades, from 2004 to 2024. Federal prosecutors said in a superseding indictment filed Thursday. Previously, the earliest allegations dated to 2008. The new indictment adds new accusations against the music mogul and expands the timeline of the alleged abuse, but does not include any new charges. The 2 new anonymous victims were allegedly subjected to prearranged sexual encounters that often lasted multiple days, were sometimes recorded and regularly involved sex workers. Combs abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, the indictment read, accusing him of using such tactics to force 3 unnamed women to engage in commercial sex acts. Combs would keep the women obedient and compliant by feeding them narcotics, according to the superseding indictment. Those acts were similar to the drug-fueled sex marathons Combs dubbed freak-offs, but also included one-on-one assaults from him, the indictment read. Like the freak-offs, these commercial sex acts involving Combs and a female victim were prearranged, sometimes lasted multiple days, were sometimes electronically recorded by Combs, and often involved Combs distributing a variety of controlled substances to the victim, in part to keep the victim obedient and compliant, the indictment read. The hip-hop producer was also newly accused of tracking the victim's whereabouts, dictating the victim's appearance, monitoring their medical records, controlling their housing, and supplying them with controlled substances. The latest indictment comes days after the first episodes of the explosive documentary The Fall of Diddy were released Monday, which included an account from a former personal assistant who said Combs forced him to have sex with a woman to prove his loyalty. I remember hearing the words, "Prove your loyalty to me, your king," said Philip Pines, who worked for Diddy from 2019 to 2021, adding that the hip-hop mogul was out of his mind before a freak-off. He grabbed me by the shoulders, gave me a massage like a coach would give a player that's about to enter the game, handed me a condom, pushed me to a girl that was on the couch. Pine submitted and had sex with the woman, explaining that he was afraid to refuse because he'd allegedly seen Combs assault employees who defied him. "My life changed, and I've never really recovered from it," Pine said, breaking down in tears. Diddy was arrested in September on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, and a month later, lawyers announced plans to release lawsuits from at least 120 victims of Combs' alleged sexual predation. The alleged victims have ranged from women to young boys. Combs remains behind bars at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn after pleading not guilty and being denied bail, while his lawyers have vehemently denied the allegations against him. The latest indictment contains no new offenses. The prosecution's theory remains flawed. The government has added the ridiculous theory that two of Mr. Combs' former girlfriends were not girlfriends at all, but were prostitutes. Mr. Combs is as committed as ever to fighting these charges and winning at his trial, his attorney Mark Agnifilio said in a statement. What more can we say about P. Diddy and how this case has become a fiasco? This man is a predator, and not only a predator, freak-offs. I've lost count of how many victims are here. And for anyone who wants to throw some shade on this and say, what happened to believe all women? This guy is a predator, and he's a predator of like the worst kind. And this case is getting crazier because there's more victims now in this case alone. So it doesn't add to the whole RICO case they're trying to pull on this guy, but there's more victims. And they're expanding the time frame. I mean, this guy is a real sicko. And you wonder, did the NYPD Chief of Department, Jeffrey Madry, follow this guy's playbook? Because, you know, he has his own sexual harassment problems. But then there's also another guy who, I don't know, hung out with P. Diddy, gave him the key to the city, and was in a music video, or his picture was in his music video. And he speaks very like, I'm sorry that P. Diddy's even in prison. That's the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams. So let's see what he had to say in one of the most craziest rants I've seen this guy say. But this is after we are hearing that he's supposed to step down today. He's supposed to get a superseding indictment today. There's going to be state charges on Mayor Eric Adams. There's so much chaos around this guy, I can't even keep track. So let me just play you what he said at this dinner he showed up to after 4 days of no one knowing where he was because he was out of the public spotlight and wasn't speaking to anyone publicly.
Who started the stupid rumor that I was stepping down on Friday? Are you out of your mind? And you know what's fascinating? You have to be of a great level of wisdom to understand what is playing out on the stage of politics in New York City. You got to focus on this, folks. How do you print a rumor that I'm resigning on Friday, but don't print the facts that we had more jobs in the city's history on that same day? Not one tabloid covered it. Not one tabloid covered it. But let me give you something else that's really fascinating, that is very, very painful. It has to hurt for you, Deputy Mayor Williams-Isom. What you did for 220,000 migrants and asylum seekers in this city, to hear people say we are anti-immigrant, are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? While those who are criticizing us were home in their pajamas, we were out in the street doing the work for the people of this city and making this a safe haven for people in the street. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? Walking around with your silly signs. Stop doing the signs and give the sign that you believe in God and go join the work that these people have done in this city. That's the sign we need to see. You know, I'm blown away. Blown away when people want to stop and yell and boo me and call me names. Are you kidding me? You better get online. Been criticized all my life. Let me tell you why people are angry. Because finally one of you is in charge of the city. Finally. This is why they're angry. Nothing special about me. There's nothing great about me. I'm an ordinary, dyslexic, hardworking, blue-collar mayor, and those who have been in power for years that denied you have to deal with the fact we are now in charge.
Are you out of your mind? Look, this guy is playing up to, once again, the church-going crowd. You can tell it's a big African-American audience. Just like when there was a whole Irish crowd, he's talking about New York City being the Ireland of New York City. The guy always plays to his audience. So he's being a politician there. But at the very end of this, when he says, you know, they're upset because we are in charge, he's trying to say that the big, bad white man, Caucasians, anyone who's not African American is picking on him because of his skin color. And that's very disgusting. I don't know how this guy got elected. He's been playing this card for a long time. Curtis Lewa says it best. His complexion is his protection. That's what he's trying to hide behind, because it's the last thing he could say, because here's the truth. This man is highly corrupt. He is a highly corrupted individual. He's conflicted, yes, but he loves corruption and he surrounds himself with it also. There is no other way to describe this, because there are so many investigations going on. I've lost track. And if today he's going to get pardoned, well, let me show you a few posts that might change that tune real quick. So this comes from Latina Brown, and she's a community advocate in the Bronx. She, too, had a lawsuit against the New York City Police Department for sexual harassment. Seems to be something that the NYPD just can't get away from. And she posted this on X. A source revealed to me that Trump is allegedly looking to dismiss the Turkey charges against Mayor Adams without giving him a pardon, excluding the other indictments. A new set of indictments involving City Hall will be coming out. Alvin Bragg has some fresh indictments rolling out too. Mayor Adams should save himself and step down. Now, this was a post that I posted. And this is a letter from my attorney, Eric Sanders, to the court in regards to my case. And I'll read this letter to you before I read my actual post on X. Dear Magistrate Ashkenazi, I respectfully submit this letter to provide the court with an explanation regarding my temporary delay in advancing the progress of this matter. From December 2nd, 2024 through December 23rd, 2024, I was summoned to serve as an on-call juror for the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York in White Plains. During this period, I was required to remain on call and available until officially released from jury duty. On December 20th, 2024, while fulfilling my jury obligation, I was retained by former NYPD Lieutenant Quatisha Epps to represent her in a serious quid pro quo sexual harassment matter that allegedly occurred inside NYPD headquarters at One Police Plaza against then NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey B. Maddrey. The notice of this pending legal filing later prompted Chief Maddrey's immediate resignation. Following my release from jury duty, I focused exclusively on representing Miss Epps, which required my full attention for several days each week, often exceeding 8 hours daily. On December 21st, 2024, I electronically filed a charge of discrimination with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, on her behalf. The filing led to the intervention of the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District, USAO, which commenced a criminal investigation into Miss Epps' allegations against Chief Maddrey. This investigation quickly expanded into a broader probe into public corruption within the executive management structure of the Police Department of the City of New York, NYPD, and the Office of the Mayor. In addition to assisting Miss Epps with this investigation, I also worked to guide her through the vested interest retirement process of the New York City Police Pension Fund, which resulted in her successful retirement on January 14, 2025. Given the time-sensitive and complex nature of these matters, I was fully immersed in handling Miss Epps' case and unable to access my computer or check emails regularly during this period. Now that this urgent and sensitive matter have slowed, I am returning my full attention to the case before this court. I deeply regret any inconvenience caused by this delay and sincerely apologize to both the court and opposing counsel. Please be assured that my temporary absence from this matter was not due to neglect, but rather the result of my obligation to address these significant legal and procedural matters diligently. Once again, I sincerely apologize to the court and opposing counsel. I have now resumed my full schedule. I will meet and confer with opposing counsel and apprise the court of the deposition schedule, which is the remaining part of the discovery process to be completed. Thank you for your understanding and patience. Here's my post. In a letter filed by my attorney Eric Sanders to the court in regards to my case, he mentions the quiet part out loud. Former NYPD Lieutenant Epps, another one of his clients, who he is representing in a serious quid pro quo sexual harassment matter that allegedly occurred inside NYPD headquarters at One Police Plaza against then NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey B. Maddrey, which led to federal raids conducted and other seizures performed on the homes of Jeffrey Maddrey and others, showing that this investigation quickly expanded into a broader probe, intervened by the SDNY into public corruption within the executive management structure of the Police Department of the NYPD and the Office of the Mayor. What is this discussion of dropping Eric Adams' case or talk of a pardon? Hashtag the Sal Greco Show, hashtag the finest unfiltered. So here's the bottom line here. If you read this letter, and the only reason this letter is even public is because by a strange coincidence, Lieutenant Quatisha Epps has the same attorney as I do. So since my case against the New York City Police Department now has to move forward because it was stalled for just a little bit of time. Because yes, Eric Sanders had to do jury duty. But what else does he have? He had to deal with this case, in particular the complaint by Quatisha Epps to the EEOC. But what's the most important part there? the Southern District of New York intervened, and then Eric Sanders has to work on this case for 8 hours a day. And then subsequently there were raids and other stuff that went on at numerous locations involving the upper echelon and executive staff there of the New York City Police Department, in particular, Jeffrey Madrick. And of course, it's also written in there that this is going to involve the executive level of the New York City Police Department and the mayor's office. I don't see Eric Adams being let off on anything. In fact, Eric, you've got a lot of problems in your future legally. And if you read Latinas Brown's post, maybe it really is time for you to think about, Eric, if you are going to step down. Because this could be quite the scene if you were let out in handcuffs somewhere in the not-so-distant future. And with that, I'm going to bid adieu and farewell. I hope everyone out there has a very, very fun-filled weekend. Please drive carefully, be responsible, and I'll see you on the next one.